Hello, welcome back to Scale Modelling Cafe. Yes, I'm in mufti. I'm not in the Scale Modelling Cafe uniform because it's 3 degrees outside. It's absolutely freezing. Anyway, enough of the weather. Beautiful sunrises and sunsets though. Absolutely stunning. Maybe I'll put a picture up. Anyway, right, weather aside, the purpose of this video then, this is the Eduard P-51 Mustang Royal Class Edition. Effectively part 1. You get 2 kits in this box, and I've made a bit of a faux pas. So you'll see from down here I have built and painted the first model, and this is the subject of this video. Slightly different format, well, big different format. First time I'm trying this format. In the past, I've built a model and then just done a debrief video just to talk through of some of the aspects of that model when it's completed. This one, similar, but I've broken it down into chapters. So I film a debrief on the cockpit, a debrief on the construction, and then a debrief on the painting and weathering. I really hope you like the format. Be really interesting to hear your feedback. Do you like the format? Is it not for you? How could I improve it next time? That kind of thing, because I'm intending doing more of these because it does really lower the burden of the editing. Now, I will be doing full build videos. In fact, this guy's wingman is being filmed in the traditional format, probably a 2-parter. It's only a small model, it's fairly quick. But as you'll see in a second, things haven't gone to plan. Anyway, the extras that you get in the Royal Class box, I think, make it a really good value. Not only do you get 2 kits, you get a plethora of markings. There's, I've forgotten, it's like 14 markings or something, 12 markings, options, loads to choose from, natural metal, camouflage, different theatres, a couple of RAF ones, one in natural metal, which was really appealing. All those kinds of, like loads of variations. So this edition is tailor-made for the Overtrees, which you've got all the bits and, well, all the markings in here anyway, in order to do lots of different models. Anyway, that aside, what I decided to do on this one though is just throw some extras at it, as always. In the box you get propellers, wheels, seats and exhausts, I think. Can't remember now. So I've just got some of the packets from that here. The propeller, I bought the cuffed propeller. Oh, excuse me, just move this a little bit closer. Cuffed propeller. I've also got the uncuffed propeller because, right, here's where it all went wrong. In the box, I didn't realise there were 2 fuselages, but different types of fuselage. One filleted tail, one not filleted tail. I thought they were both filleted. Therefore, my plan was to do this one and then do an F-51 from Korea. And it's only when I tried to fit the tail, I realised I had a different bloody fuselage and I couldn't do the F-51, which is a shame because I'd done all the masks for it. And I'd built up the rockets. I'd already built the napalm tanks. And I was really, really disappointed, actually. I'll tell you what I'm going to do with the other kit in a minute, though. Right, there's resin exhausts, which are hollow, so, and they're only cheap. If you're just going to buy the regular boxing, they're only a few quid. I went out and I bought some seats, not realising they come with the kit, so I put one of these in my Armour Hobby kit, and I've still got one left over. These are really brilliant. There's 2 types. There's one with the seat harness and one without, so you can put the photo etch harness on if you like. I actually like the one with the moulded in belts. It came out really nice. The one extra that you don't get, well, there's 2 extras that you don't get in the kit. One are the paper drop tanks, which are 3D printed. I really like the idea of a 3D printed fuel tank because there's no seams. Most of the drop tanks that are used on the Mustang, though, the metal ones at least, had the sort of rim around. So actually there's no seam to clean up, so it's fine. But it's really awkward on the paper tanks. And I like the paper tanks because they're actually quite big. So I use the brass in paper tanks. You get a front, a middle and a back section, and they just plug in. Dead easy. I also have used the Eduard Space Set. Now, normally I rave about these because I think if you get an Overtrees, a Space Set, and a canopy masking set, if you don't want to do it yourself, then I think that is a really, really good cost-effective way of getting a really, really nice model. I think in the 72nd scale Mustang's case, though, because the cockpit is so small, I honestly think the brassing cockpit is a waste of time, and I think the Space Set is a waste of time. Yes, it's 3D printed decal and it's all the relief and it looks lovely, but it's really well hidden under that coaming shroud, and actually you don't really see an awful lot. So even just the kit decal would work absolutely fine in this kit, I think, and if you're going to use the photo etch, that'd be absolutely fine as well. So that's some of the aftermarket bits. Markings options wise, then I've gone for lifelike decals. There is an option for this fighter group in the boxing, and actually it's a really nice option, but it's not Jersey Jerk, it's a different one, and I really quite like that option, but I just wanted to do something a little bit different, and that's me. And I thought it was worth the extra expense. All the markings on this are sprayed other than the nose art though, and I used the Eduard set for that. Now, something a little bit special on the painting of this, you may have seen, and I'll link it at the end, my dry brushing acrylic metallic. Quite a few comments on that video saying that, well, it's not as good as lacquer, and I kind of disagree in some respects. I think it's equal to lacquer and the patina, but the advantage of that is it's acrylic based, and I wanted to see whether I'd get a nice metallic effect on that video on the test mule, and I did, and it worked, and I thought I'd try it out on a project, and this is that project. For me, do I think it's going to replace my usual method? And I think for the smaller scales, no. I think for the larger scales, where you'll get the benefit of that graining and the patina, the weathered aluminium, I think it would really work. In 72nd, less so. But if you are an acrylic user, I think it's a really effective way of getting a brilliant, actually, metallic finish. I'm a lacquer user, so I'm probably going to stick with my lacquers, but I may well try it. I've got a 32nd scale project in mind that I think I'm going to use that technique on. Anyway, but that's for way down. Probably not this year. Right, there we are. The other option then. So, like I say, this is kind of part one, and it's in the debrief format. Part two is going to be my traditional sort of step-by-step video, so you see how I do the process. That aeroplane I'm going to do in a natural metal with olive drab wings and top the fuselage, because I really like that combo. So I've ordered a set of decals. That's going to come when I'm home at Ramadan, and then I shall bring that decal sheet with me. The other model is actually built, and well, partially built, just one session, and it'll be ready for paint, I'm sure. I'm just going to have to wait for the decal, so it's going to be a little while. But anyway, there we are. Longer than I was anticipating, different format than I was anticipating, this intro, so apologies for that. However, I really hope you like the format. Again, please give me your format down in the comments. Do you like the format? Do you want to see more of this format, or would you prefer that I just sack it off and do the traditional one? It's entirely up to you. Be good. Right, there we are. Let's pop over to the bench then, and the first part is going to be the debrief of the cockpit. So I'll see you at the bench. Right, okay, here we are at the bench, and yeah, the fuselage is ready to be joined. Let's just have a quick chat about the detail first. I'll get my little pointy stick. Okay, let's zoom in. Right, okay, let's start off at the back then. So the tail, this whole assembly here is separate, which is going to slightly complicate things painting wise for me for the scheme, because the rudder was a separate colour, so that would have been nice if that was separate. But you can see here that you have this peg and these two tabs, big one at the back, small one at the front. They just slot into these recesses, and it means that the join, if we just turn this round, there we go, try and get some light on it. The join is absolutely seamless.
Now, you have to put the fin in at this stage because you're not going to get it in with this little round tab here. You could cut that off and then plonk this on afterwards, but why you would do that, I don't know. Moving forward then is this sort of cage affair here. 2 parts. Obviously it's the wheel well with integral doors, which I really love the idea of integral doors. I think that is fantastic. The zinc chromate yellow is actually yellow and black mixed. That's my own mix, and that worked very well. This assembly here, as you can see, is painted and put in. Obviously the fuselage halves have been painted on the inside. Beautiful looking matrix there. That's had a wash and a dry brush. And the one at the front here is the photo etch part on the front, but the kit, it's a bit minging that end, isn't it? Let's swap that round. Less mingy. Yeah, really nice, but actually the kit part underneath, for what you'll see in there, I think is more than acceptable. Okay, the cockpit then. First of all, the seat. This is the 3D printed seat with the integral seat belts, not the photo etch ones. Thought I'd go for that, and it works really well. I wonder if I can just up the lighting. Hope that's not too harsh. Just knock it down one. There we go. It's a bit better. Right. So yes, 3D printed seat. These stays here. It's all in one piece. Beautiful quilting on the back, and well worth the addition, and very cheap too. Just be very careful though, because obviously, minging end, because it's these can be quite fragile. There's a lot of molded detail on the back of the headrest here. That was all removed for this photo etch part, documents holder thing. Yeah, bit strange that, because the detail actually looked really nice. And then this affair down here is all highly detailed. Some minging in again. Photo etch, a couple of little photo etch placards on the top, and actually in the cockpit lots of photo etch placards. Thing obviously that will strike you, you can see here, is the worn paint effect. So that was RLM 79, then some hairspray, and then I went to chip it, but I think my hairspray is getting a bit old actually. It's a bit gloopy. And I didn't like how that turned out, so I wet sanded very gently with some 600 grit and effectively just polished away the black overcoat. It's all MRP, and that worked very well. See some more photo etch down here. The instructions, there is some widget here, tells you to remove, so I did that, and then just a little bit of dusting effects just on the floor there with some oil paint. And that's that side. Really nice. We got the oxygen hose there. Really nice. On to the side, obviously you can see the detail a lot better there. There's one part, a few bits of photo etch there. You do have to scrape some of the details away. And actually, I would prefer, I think, decals rather than photo etch plates. I think decals are far superior. And you don't need to scrape anything off. You can just stick them over the head, overhead, and they should conform if you do it right. So that's that cockpit, and I'm ready to join the fuselage halves. What I do want to point out just quickly is you will notice this sort of recess here. So if you're going to do the brass-in engine insert, dead easy. Just cut along that, and it should work out well. Obviously that follows the panel lines there, but that's a really neat touch. The fit wise is really rather good, as you could imagine. So if we just plonk that on there, so talking of seams, there's just this join here. Don't fill that hole in there, that's for the aerial, but you can see how lovely that is. Just you can see the sprue gates there, that will just polish away easy enough. So I'm going to glue that part with black super glue. This recess here, that'll be just normal cement, as will all down there. As we go to the front, there's this little sort of ridge here of plastic, a little bit of flash. But actually, oops, oh dear. The pins are actually quite small. So this bit at the back here is going to be black super glue. This to keep the panel line, which is moulded in, will be extra thin type glue. And there is a ridge either side, which that'll polish away. This seam at the back, this is going to be super glue, and underneath this is going to be super glue. You can see it's kind of springing apart there, but you know, that's no drama. And the back here is going to be super glue. Now this here is going to be a bit tricky, because obviously I don't want to damage this. I don't really care about the paint, but what I don't want to do is scratch the surface too much. So that's going to be, I'm going to have to take care over that. But you can see how brilliant that these doors are. And then this seam here is going to be extra thin. Right, there we are. So I'm going to get ahead and do that. And the next installment is going to be when it's ready for paint. Okay, here we are, ready for paint. Airframe is assembled, as you can see. Not without a few little issues, I will say. The separate sort of gun housing things here at the front, they didn't fit perfectly. You can see there I've had to go down the filler route, a little bit of filler, and I've rescribed that line. Now you could just sand all these panel lines out, not the gun covers, but just your standard panel lines, get rid of them all, in which case that wouldn't be a problem. I've also drilled out the, even though that's bunged up with a little bit of fluff, drilled out the gun barrels. Interestingly, only the inner ones had a little depression in. It's a bit odd, that. The wings themselves, obviously, yeah, no real issue, top to bottom. You can really see the laminar flow design, actually, the very sharp leading edge, which was easy to clean up. Fuselage went together fairly well. I managed to get, and it's my fault, a little bit of a step here, and you can see a little bit of filler work going on. Let's just bring it closer into the camera so you can, without bashing it. Some seam work here. I create a little bit of a step, glued together with super glue, black super glue, the main sort of seams. Quite a complicated assembly to get all the bits and pieces in there before closing up. You see the little photo etch mast there, the integral gear doors, obviously that's all masked up, and yeah, fuselage went together really quite well. Another note rather on the fuselage is this seam here, which is actually molded in. So you do have to be careful. There is a bit of a raised lip either side that when you remove that, it will affect the rivets that are very finely molded on. So all these rivets were replaced. Now the main issue I had was the fitting of the windscreen. It fitted great on the left hand side, but on the right hand side, if I pushed it down, there was quite a big step here, which was irritating. If I tried to match this contour, then there was quite a big gap here, and I elected to do that. So rather than having a step here, I'd rather a bit of a gap here. Now it's not perfect, there was still a little bit of a step, but it was much reduced. This gap here was filled with my standard epoxy from Mr. Hobby, and that was pushed in, and then when dry, sanded, and then this panel line here scribed in. Now it did, I didn't actually do the best job at filling. There was a bit of what I should have done actually is pushed it right into the gap and actually filled it properly. It wasn't quite filled properly, so when I drew the scriber in, it did sort of push in a bit here. So not my best job, but hopefully this will look a lot better And eventually, at the end of it, once it was sanded and polished, the rivets were replaced. You can see under the nose here, these panels, as per the instructions, were filled in and then sanded. One problem though was you do get a template to rescribe this, but it's really small, and it's really difficult to keep in place. I think what they should have done is just have a lot bigger bit of photo etch, so it'd be much easier to hold that in place. So that's a bit of a pain. I guess what you could do is tack it into place. It says don't glue it, but tack it into place with 2 or a few little tiny drops of super glue to help hold it in place. Do your scribing job, ping it off, and then get some super glue remover. I think that might be the better way ahead. There was a slight step on this join here, and you still, if I run my finger over it, I can feel it actually. So you're either going to get a big gap down this seam, or you're going to have a slight step. I've gone for the step, if you like. I'll prime the model, see what it looks like, and I can always reduce the height of this seam if required. The wing to fuselage join is extremely good. The sort of wing assembly slots in, sorry I keep nudging the camera stand, slots in from this direction and just clicks in place, and it's really nice. Tailplane's pretty good, tiny bit of a gap at the front here, and then a bit of a gap, bit worse on this side than this side, little tiny hairline gap, just filled with a bit of Mr. Surfacer. And really that's it. You can see these O-mask sponge masks, and you can see all the detail there, and these are like this really dense foam thing, and it's really good actually. So if I just push that back in, if you squeeze it down with, say, tweezers, it kind of expands back out, a bit like those little orange ear things. We actually wear them going flying. I'll push that in. There we are, and then that will slowly expand out. You've got to make sure you get it right in there. Oop, I'll just put a hole in that. But there we are. So that's pushed in. Yeah, this is pretty much ready for paint now. And that's exactly what I'll do. So next time you'll see this is the base coat on, all the painting done, ready for some of the decals. So I'll see you then. Okay, here we are. Base coat, or at least the natural metal, is done on the wings, and I shall unmask this in a bit actually, because I've got a bit more painting to do. But what I've done is these were painted in matte aluminium with just 1 drop of MRP light aircraft grey. In fact, I can show you the effect on that on the drop tanks. So here's one of the resin, 3D printed resin drop tanks, and you can see it gives a nice sort of silver grey finish, which is exactly what I was after. So very pleased with that. Yeah, so this stuff, dry brush. The other day I did a complete video on this. I'll link it at the end so you can go and see that. But essentially, this stuff was dry brushed over a Tamiya XF1 matte black base, and this is the effect you get. I'm not sure whether the camera's picking it up. If I just turn off the sort of filling lighting, you might be able to see a bit of a texture on these panels here and on the fin. And you get this kind of weathered effect, and it's really cool. What I have done is, using the Eduard panel masks, these, which are really good by the way, I've sprayed this panel and I've sprayed this panel. Now this panel traditionally was darker, so that was a mix of what have I got here, steel and burnt iron, these two. Back panel here and this panel here was dark aluminium, just to sort of break things up a bit. But I'm really pleased with how the natural metal has turned out. The ailerons and the flaps are were done in duralumin, and yeah, really pleased with how the natural metal finish has come out. What I'm going to do now is I have sprayed a coat of aqua gloss over the top. It has lifted in a few areas. Don't know if the light is just catching it down here, just where the masks were. So I did rush that, if I'm honest, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray all the markings next. So the black stripes on the wings and the national markings and the nose colour and the spinner, that's all going to get painted. But I want the aqua gloss to cure properly before I attempt that. So I'm just going to put just another light mist coat on that, and then it'll be time for all the detail painting, which I'm really, really looking forward to. So when you see this next, it'll be finished. The painting, that is, will be finished, ready for the weathering. So I'll see you in a tick. Okay, take two. I forgot to hit record on the microphone on the first take, so I've had a bit of rehearsal. As you can see, all the markings are painted, and we are ready for the decals now. It all started with the wing stripes. These are Tamiya, and they were, it's not actually obviously neat black, it's just a little bit of NATO black, and then that was darkened down. On the underside you might be able to see, this is not, I've missed a bit, this is actually the lip for the undercarriage door, and obviously that wouldn't be painted. That was the first job. The next job was the nose, which was a little bit complicated, as you can see from the shape of it. So this was designed and then printed out on my silhouette portrait cutter, as were the diamonds. So once I'd done the red, which had an undercoat of a very light grey, just to make a nice even base, the diamonds were painted on. Very fiddly, as you can see, in 72nd scale, and in two halves, left and right, and then these two halves, left and right. This one, which one was it? I think it was this one. I hadn't actually lined up particularly well, so I had to redo this one. But you can see the advantage of spraying as opposed to decals, especially with all that very fine rivet detail. Same for the markings, national markings, all sprayed. These were using actually the Eduard templates, which is in a very stiff black vinyl, and quite grabby actually. And as you can see on here, which is supposed to be a light grey, flat light grey, it's pulled up a little bit of the paint underneath, because I painted the light colour first and then the blue, which is the opposite way round that Eduard would have you do it. Codes, again, designed in Affinity Designer 2 and then cut out on my silhouette portrait. That's worked an absolute treat. And then I've redone the rudder, which, as you'll see in previous ones, I'd painted blue, and then when I looked at the instructions, was supposed to be red for this particular squadron. So I've redone that. Just a quick mention on the blue here. So the blue here, in fact, I've done it on the spinner as well, which is in my box of bits. If I just get the spinner out, and we'll talk about the blue. So again, this has been masked and painted. Can't pick it up. Oh, for goodness sake, Jamie. I'm all fingers and thumbs today. Right, this is the brass-in resin. There we are. So the blue I've used, if I can get that lined up, it's not quite, but it doesn't matter. Right, the blue I've used is MRP Blue Angels Blue, which according to Paul Lucas is an exact match for the deep sky that the British used, and apparently the Americans used it as well. It looks a little bit lighter than the blue on the nose here for some reason. I think that's probably because I painted these blue diamonds over the red, whereas this is over the light grey primer. So it's a little bit more faded. So I might just repaint the back of the spinner. Damn it. Whoops. I'll go and pick that up in a minute. Anyway, so yeah, deep sky. And apparently that's what the fighter wing at Bodney used. And I thought, well, it's probably likely that they used the same here. But there we go. Right, that's the paint. Next stop is Hansted decal stations. And I'll show you the results of the decaling shortly. Right, decaling complete. Lifelike decals. They're still bedding down, and they've gone down really, really nicely actually. You might be able to see, for example, on the tail. Can you see the carrier film? I'm going to say no. Now, they're printed by Cartograph, so quality assured. But I think that's brilliant. The nose art here is still bedding down, but I can start to see the rivet detail coming through. Oops, sorry, the wing's in the way. I can start to see the detail for the riveting and everything coming through. And the name on the nose, again, well, I'm buggered if I can see that carrier film. Same on the other side. So this is the crew chief's girlfriend's name. Just move the light round a bit. And again, that's gone down brilliantly. Stencil wise, I've been a little bit frugal on the stenciling. Done some of the more obvious ones on the wing. And pretty much that's it really. There's the sort of data one here at the front that you can barely see, it's so fine. And there's a couple of tiny little stencils, but these are going to get lost. So I didn't bother with the rest, if I'm honest. What's the point? This one I just need to touch up with a tiny dot of red paint, or I might just leave it. It's fuel filler. But that's it. Decaling complete. So what I'm going to do, I'll leave this for a few hours now to go off. And then I'll probably just seal these decals in with a tiny bit of matte varnish. I'll probably not even bother with the name on the front. I might just brush over matte if I can. Bit of matte acrylic just over there, just to reduce the shine. But yeah, really, really pleased with how those have gone down. Right, I must mention this, my pointy stick. This is the Annie's AN059 Precision Tweezers, and my goodness me, are they precise. I use these for decaling, and I wouldn't be without them. They are absolutely beautiful. So pop out and get some of those if you're after some precision tweezers. They are brilliant. Right, there we are. Next, weathering. Exciting times. I'll see you then. Okay, here she is, all done. I've got to be careful how I pick her up because some of the oils are still not fully dry. I literally finished this about 15 minutes ago. Right, finished and weathering all completed. Now, is it over the top weathering? More than likely. I went a little bit overboard with the oils, but actually, do you know what? I really like it. All started on the wings. I've done the oil dot weathering, and in fact that's a bit shiny, isn't it? Let's see if I can knock that off. Right. Yeah, it's going to be difficult for the camera. Digital cameras do not like metallic finishes, shiny finishes. Standard oil dot weathering all over the wings, a little bit more grime in some of the recesses, and a lot of grime around the nose and the wing root. quite a bit of mud and dust, airfield dust, around where the crew would be getting in, or the pilot and the ground crew. Very restrained exhaust stain, actually. Mustangs generally didn't look too bad for exhaust staining. On the other side, I'll just spin around just very carefully. Try not to knock bits off. It is a fragile model. This little hole here is the the oil breather. So what happens is there's a kind of separator which the engine oil gets aerated, and you want to eject the air, and various sort of engineering gubbins, and what happens is it gets ejected, the air, but inevitably there's a little bit of oil that comes out. And if you look at Mustangs, you'll see quite a characteristic little oil trail coming out of there, and I wanted to depict that on this model. These are the brass-in paper tanks. The advantage of these is there's no seam running down the middle, and they are 3D printed and come in 3 parts: center section, forward and aft, and it's really easy to just stick these together, clean them up, a couple of swipes of a sanding stick, done. And they were painted in the same silver grey finish as the main part of the wings. I've also wired them up, really tricky actually, in 72nd. It's 0.2 lead wire, and that's really quite tricky. But I'm glad I did it. It adds that extra bit of detail. Quite a bit of oil streaking underneath, as you can see. Again, looking at wartime photos, quite characteristics, the way it kind of sweeps from the centre out with the airflow. So I wanted to depict that. And there we are. Beautiful little kit. Not without its problems, as you've seen, but actually builds up really nicely. Some of the extras used: brass and wheels, fuel tank, prop and spinner. To be honest, I've used the brass-in seat as well. I think there's a little point going for the brass-in cockpit, if I'm honest. It's very small in there. Instrument panel, you get away with the kit decal, easy, because it's very difficult to see. But overall, I think it's a fabulous little model. And what I'll do now is I'll leave you, if I'm just, can I move it down and zoom in a bit? There we go. What I'm going to do is I'll leave you with a photo gallery of the finished model. That's it for this one. I've got another one to do, which I'm going to do in Korean War markings, and I'm going to do the shark's mouth. I'm going to take exactly the same approach, but I'm going to do a proper video build on this. This is actually for a publication I'm doing. Hence, I'm not going to give you too much, but I thought I'd make a quick video on this project. I hope you like the format. If you do, let me know, and I can always do more. It's quite pleasant actually, because it cuts right down on the editing. But there we are. Let me know if you enjoy the format, and maybe I can do some more. I'll leave it there. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers, bye bye.